Hey guys, what's up, and welcome to Taking Over the Photo Pit, a music photography podcast where I interview amazing badass photographers in the music industry. And I'm so excited for today because we are talking to Cassidy Elizabeth, who I have been Facebook friends with for a while, and I was creeping on her website and there's so many good images, videos, so much good stuff on her website. So I really wanted to talk to her about her journey and how she got started and what tips she has for you guys. So let's just jump into it since I have Cassidy here. So hi, Cassidy. I'm so excited to have you.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
No problem. Let's just jump into your intro. Can you tell us about who you are, where you're located, how you got started in photography, all that fun stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So I am 22. My name's Cassidy Elizabeth. I am a photographer, marketing specialist, and videographer, currently based out of Boston, but not for much longer. I am moving to LA at the end of August. So I'm almost in Boston, but kind of floating around at this point. But I originally got started in college. I was a journalism and communications double major at UMass Amherst in Western Massachusetts. And originally I was going to be a broadcast journalist, and that's how I started in the music industry. I had a friend who owned a publication, a lot similar to the I'm Schmacked kind of party videos. They had just started to expand into the festival photography aspect and talking to different artists and stuff like that. And I went as their broadcast girl and got to interview a ton of artists. And so that kind of jump-started my photography interest. Back then at that festival that I had originally attended, I had a media pass, which to a lot of photographers is you don't get to bring in a camera. You can only bring in either a tripod or a recording device, because as a media pass person, you are solely in charge of doing interviews. And I remember passing by the photo pit and being damn, I really want to be there in the thick of things and not just the girl that's interviewing someone and then I'll never speak to them again. The first person that I ended up interviewing was Alan Walker, who is a very well-known DJ, especially in the European space. And, lo and behold, fast forward, I think it's been 4 or 5 years now. He, has been somebody that I've looked up to as an artist. And I've also worked in the EDM space quite often the past year to 2 years. So, I've definitely done the vast majority of photography projects in the past 3 or 4-ish years. And I, within the past year, have kind of dove a little bit further into creativity rather than just finishing a job and never talking to an artist again. And I think this past year I've definitely spent a lot of time kind of honing in on what my creative aspect was and what I can offer to the artist rather than just taking their picture. So a lot of the stuff that's on my website, for example, I do a lot of film photography. I do a lot of kind of more BTS work, stuff that artists can look back at. And I always joke with artists in the sense of you'll get the pictures for editorial from whoever, but in terms of the person that's the wallflower and sitting with you and sitting with your girlfriend or your manager, the people that you're close to backstage, and just getting through your lens, what that concert was to even be at, that's what I enjoy doing. And so I've kind of made my career based off of that mantra.
Nice. Yeah, let's jump right into talking about your portfolio and your work, because that was one thing that really stood out to me is the first page of your website is a lot of film work, and then you go into there's behind the scenes, there's lifestyle images, you have food and product photography, like you mentioned, event work. So you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what was your rationale behind doing all of these different types of photography? Did you just want to be well-rounded and be able to take on everything, or was it kind of just following your passions of what kind of photography you do?
Yeah, so being in Boston for the past, it's going to be my third year this year now. The vast majority of people that come to town, whether it's for tours or festivals, are heavy into like either the indie background or kind of more of a DIY show background. So it's very low budgets. It's very like, we need the all-encompassing coverage. We don't just need these like general like pyro shots or CO2 shots. I mean, don't get me wrong, like there are definitely venues now that have and host artists that need that, but like a lot of the times when I started doing photography, I wasn't even 21, so I couldn't go to any of the nightclubs and shoot those kinds of like CO2 shots that everyone loves. So I remember when I first moved to Boston, I worked with a nightclub called Royale that was partnered with a production company, an event company called The Bowery Presents, and The Bowery Presents hosts all of like the rock, alt, pop, indie type of artists. And so I, having no experience and looking back at those photos, I'm like, oh my god, like if I could go back and like get a different angle, like slightly like 2 feet away, like that would have made such a good shot. But those kinds of experiences taught me like to get the all-encompassing shots, you know, like coming from an editorial background, I knew how to do like press shots and how to get like editorial down. And then once I was 21, I started going to nightclubs, shooting for artists and especially like DJs that more nightclubs hosted and had the CO2, pyro, more like audience, like family photo styles. And then I would go back to like an indie perspective and do a lot of BTS work. I would do a lot of more like, it was like usually an 18 or 16 plus show, so it was a lot more lively. Like the kids weren't drunk. Like you would be able to tell that like a lot of like fandoms, for example, would be there. Like a lot of kids that like waited outside for 2 hours would be there. So a lot of times I would take advantage of that and I would kind of resonate with those people and get all-encompassing shots. And I think like, for example, right now I own a marketing firm in which we work with hospitality clients and artists. So a lot of those product and branding shots come from the experiences I've had, especially experiences I've had where I'll be taking photos for a venue or for an artist, for example, and a neighboring venue will see it and say like, hey, do you do social media marketing as well? And for me, like I went to college for that. So I'm like, yeah, of course I do. And so I've been very lucky enough to make that relationship with venues that they trust me enough to not only take their photos, but also run their marketing, which is very rare to see, especially in Boston at least. So yeah, that's pretty much like the whole, like that's the whole reason why I have like such a huge extensive portfolio. And I really like it because a lot of times, like, for example, I'll hire people for projects and I'll realize that they don't have experience doing BTS, or I'll go to a festival and I'll meet a fellow creative who has no clue how to follow someone around with a camera, you know, or get like short clips or something like that, like things that you could easily like market yourself as like, I not only do photo, but I could, like for me, I do photo, video, and 35 mil film. So, you know, it's a lot more marketable that way, and I think, you know, everyone should dabble with that for sure.
Yeah, having that extensive portfolio and being able to pretty much do whatever you're asked for opens you up to so many more jobs. And that kind of lines up with the idea of touring, because like a lot of tours and stuff, you'd be like following people around and just documenting their life on tour. So do you do touring as well?
So I've never done touring myself. The whole reason behind that is that I, being from the Boston area and having done a lot of work with like venues and whatnot, it's so time consuming doing that. And yeah. I was consistently somebody that would be like a go-to person in Boston, and be the person where if they weren't touring with a photographer, they would snap me up real quick, and I would always be like on the ball of who's in town and stuff like that. And I very much preferred that because I would be able to stay at home. I mean, I have a cat now, so I feel like it's like a child that I'm taking care of, but I also, in terms of touring, you know, I couldn't balance things like social media marketing. Like, that's such a huge task to do, and to kind of handhold a company that way and teach them and educate them about marketing for their own business. Like, that's such a hard thing to do while you're on the road. And so I kind of just played it safe a little bit. But now I think, now after, like, during quarantine, for example, like, I've been working specifically with musicians and not really restaurant clients anymore. And so because of that, I've had a lot more freedom, you know, hence, like, my ability to even move. Like, that's all thanks to artists who have kind of worked with me during this time, instead of traditional, you know, clients that I would have in, like, the hospitality space. So hopefully, my goal is, when, you know, everything is subsiding a little bit and shows get back to it. Personally, I mean, I'm an artist manager for 2 different artists myself, so I would absolutely love to take my skills and go on, like, a day-to-day or, like, a TM role, and kind of double that with photo. But we'll see. I think that the schedule might permit, but we have no clue.
Yeah, it's really hard to, like, figure out really anything right now with quarantine. And you mentioned moving. What's kind of, like, pushing you to move? You're gonna be in LA, closer to me.
Yeah, I know. It's been a long time coming, for sure. Being in Boston has taught me so much about the indie scene and DIY shows, and I'm very lucky that I actually got that, like, small town or small city experience. And I grew up in Connecticut, so I was halfway between New York and Boston, and I really only went to Boston a couple times before I moved, but it felt very natural after college moving, being that I was the only person in my, like, friend group, or at least my graduating class within, like, journalism, that ended up being in that, like, super creative and music space. Like, there was really no person to, like, fall back on and kind of ask for advice, so it just felt natural to move to Boston and kind of play it by ear, which was great, because obviously, like, it's definitely not cheaper. I actually recently found out, like, through this whole moving process, that Boston is the 3rd most expensive city in the US besides San Francisco and New York. So I feel like I've definitely played myself when it comes to, like, finding cheap rent and stuff over here. But I'm very happy that I had the experience of, like, Boston's a C-level music market, so not a whole lot of times you'll see, like, a lot of times people will skip tours in Boston because they don't produce enough tickets. So the people that do come here are either really high profile, that are coming, like, they're getting paid a lot of money to kind of go out of their way, which is bigger budgets and cool shows to go to. But then you'll also find those, like, DIY artists who are allowing you and, you know, whoever you work with to kind of, like, play around with, like, your different skills. So for the first couple of years I was here, I would, you know, offer to do film for free, or just, like, pay for my film, you know, stuff like that. So it would be a lot easier to do that instead of being in a major city like LA, and say you screw up, like, who knows, you know, who that person's gonna go back to and say, like, that person was horrible, you know, versus, like, if you do it for free and you kind of, like, be honest with them in a sense of, like, hey, I'll help you out, but, like, can you help me out and give me the time, you know, to go over and take some film of you guys. So moving to LA, I mean, all of my clients right now are currently in LA, so that was a huge decision. That was a huge, like, movement for me. And then for the entirety that I was in Boston, I was consistently around people that had 9-to-5 jobs, and it just made more sense to be around people that were in the creative field. And it took me a little bit of time to realize how much or how important it was to me to be around those people. I did go to LA about 3 weeks to a month ago to check out apartments, and that was kind of the same week that I was kind of deciding, like, whether or not I would want to fully move there. And I literally went to LA. I flew from Boston to LA for 72 hours and then flew back because I had, like, I was so scared of, like, flying during the quarantine and stuff like that. So it ended up reaffirming, my decision about moving, and the fact that I would much rather spend my money, living in an area in which, like, if I needed help or I needed advice, I could just turn to somebody that did something very similar towards me, in comparison to talking to people that were working a 9 to 5 and just, like, not able to kind of comprehend or resonate with what I'm saying. But I'm very lucky that in Boston I have one really, really good mentor of mine that used to live in LA, and he traditionally lives in New York right now, but he has a couple homes in Boston that he's been, having family stay at during the quarantine. And so I, throughout the quarantine, have been talking to him, going back and forth of, like, do you think this is the right decision? Like, should I do this now, or, like, should I wait post-COVID or anything like that? And he kind of said to me, like, I feel like you have finally reached a point in your life where you are comfortable with going somewhere like LA or somewhere like New York and existing in that space. I would not have told you that a year ago or 2 years ago, while you were growing your career. But I feel like now that I've kind of exhausted all the contacts, it's definitely something that I had to pursue. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a few things that you touched on there that I think are really important in, like, everyone's kind of journey and how they engage with the city that they're in. And the first one was, like, working with people in a way that you're, like, offering something for free or a level where you're learning yourself and it's not being, like, held against you as you're learning. Because the Los Angeles market, for sure, we have a lot of, up and coming bands that I've worked with that are just the locals that you're like, hey, I want to try this thing. I really want to add it to my portfolio. I'll do it for free or whatever it is. And that helps, like, build your relationship with them. And then you have those contacts. And I think that's really, really important. So I love that you mentioned that. And LA is definitely an interesting market. And you got to make sure that you're on the right, I guess, level with people and people think highly of you. So it doesn't go around, because even though for a big city, it's a small market, like, everyone knows each other.
Yeah, I think also, like, being 22 right now and being in a place where, like, especially when I work in marketing, I'm talking to a lot of, like, marketing managers that are working with labels, or I'll talk to distribution people, or I'll talk to sync. And all of those people, especially, like, agents, for example, like, they're, like, 30 years old, like, late 20s, 30s, 40s even. And I just felt like a couple of years ago, I didn't have the confidence that I do now to even, like, email, let alone talk to those people. And now that I feel like, to some degree, especially having my own marketing firm, being established, like, being in now my second year of owning my own company, it's something that, like, I feel comfortable and I feel like I'm on the same playing field as them. And I mean, when I was even looking at colleges, like, I was terrified to even go out somewhere like LA or, anything like that. And when I was looking back then, I mean, I didn't even dream that I would be doing what I'm doing now. Like, I would have thought that I'd have, like, a desk job for the rest of my life, but I'm very happy that it panned out this way. But yeah, I think a lot of it also had to do with, like, my personality. I used to be a very shy person. I didn't have, like, the traditional college experience, and a lot of it was me, like, trying to figure out who I was as a person. And I felt like if I had made a quick jump, like, right after I graduated college, not knowing, like, who I was as a person or what kind of friends even, like, I would want in life, I would worry that I would have moved preemptively and kind of maybe made friends that didn't have my back or didn't necessarily have my best interest at heart. And, it's definitely something that, like, people have, it's not lost on me that people have told me, watch out, because some people in LA are very, like, superficial and stuff like that. So it's, like, something that I needed to take time to prepare myself for, because, as the years go by, obviously within working in the music industry, you grow a thicker and thicker skin. So It's so important to do that versus just, like, jump into an environment that might be superficial. I have no clue because I haven't formally lived there yet, but I'm sure that to some degree, especially, you know, through some people that I've worked with before, like I can tell that the environment is so far off from a small town or a small city like Boston. I mean, Boston, like, people are very aggressive and will tell you what's up, you know, if you screw up. But it's not as superficial. It's just very direct, you know, so it's going to be interesting seeing that. But I'm thankful that I have that thicker skin now to kind of interpret, you know, what I like in people. Like, now I can go up to someone and be like, I'm going to stand up for myself. You know, if something is said in a conversation that I'm not comfortable with, or someone's pitching a rate that is like way lower than I wanted, like I'm able to advocate for myself in comparison to maybe a couple years ago when, you know, I probably would live in LA paying insane rent and doing a ton of stuff for free.
Yeah. I think it's kind of important to note that the East Coast and West Coast have totally different mentalities and how they interact with each other, because I moved from New York City out to LA, and when I moved, people were telling me that I came across as like really rude and like harsh.
But that's
honestly
I would just how
say
we are.
Something bluntly.
Yeah, that's how we are. Like, if you go anywhere in New York, you go up to go get a ticket or like a guest list, you know, at a venue in New York, and you're not on a list, just you're buying a ticket that day. Like, you're not, it's not working out. Like, it's not like a, do you know who I am type of scenario. It's like, you're shit out of luck, basically. Like, sorry. But I just feel like that comes from a place where, like, we are all out on the East Coast. Like, here, it's so hard to get into some schools in Boston. Like, you have all the Ivy Leagues here. You have, you know, a very small, tight-knit community in music where if you don't email somebody on a Tuesday for a Friday show, you know, you will lose your spot to have the opportunity to take photo, or you will not get that touring position, because if the rest of the team is in LA and you're in Boston, they're not going to spend their budget to fly you, you know, halfway across the country or across the country for you. So it's something where I just felt like I need to put myself in a position where I'm in the best area that I can be at the best time in my career. So yeah, totally. I think that you'll really like LA. Like, talking to people about, you know, this market, it's definitely interesting, but the thing that I love about LA is that there's so much room for opportunity here, and there's so much room for everyone here, because there's so many musicians and artists, actors, every creative career that come and go really, like, often. So it's like the whole city is a new set of people almost every year, it seems like to me. So it's like always new opportunity. Yeah, I have to say I am really psyched for the food. For example, I totally off topic, but I went to Earth Cafe for the first time when I was in LA, and I didn't realize it was one of those like hot spots. But when I went there, I sat with a really good friend of mine that is also a photographer, and she was kind of giving me the lowdown of like how LA is, and she's been in LA for a couple of years now. So being that we do the same thing, basically, you know, it was nice to get some insight. But I also got a chance. I stayed downtown when I was there, but I got a chance to take one of the bird scooters. And when I was there, of course, I had to go get a tattoo by a very, very nice artist. But I took the bird scooter to her place to go get the tattoo. And it was so nice to just be in perfect weather and feel as if I was surrounded by creativity. Like, it's coming from Boston, like, yes, there's homeless people. Yes, there's, like, really gross parts of Boston that, like, no one goes down. So it's like when people go to LA, like, maybe downtown, for example, and they're like, what the hell is this? You know, if they see, like, Compton or, like, Skid Row or something, like, obviously that's there, and, you know, to acknowledge that is good. But, like, that's every city, you know? So it was interesting to go around and see, like getting a $5 burrito at 8 a.m. with, like, other creative friends, and seeing, like, a ton of graffiti walls, or seeing, like, you know, just a bunch of creative friends that I was able to kind of see. Like, I haven't seen that girl that I met in 2 years, and we were able to just kind of like kick it and talk about like music stuff. And it was just so refreshing to be there and just like hang out with people in that sense and not feel like that person can't relate to my life, So I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited.
Yeah, there's definitely something to say about like being around creatives and people that understand what you're going through. And just like, I think creativity breeds a lot of creativity. And I struggled for a long time, like kind of finding people to talk to, especially when I started out in New York, that kind of just understood the music industry in general, but were kind of like on the same level as me. And then when I moved out to LA, it's like, holy shit, there's so many of us. And here I can like talk to any of you and you're, giving me advice. I've gotten advice from people like significantly older than me and significantly younger than me. And it's just like, everyone's so open because they're excited about what they're doing. They want to talk about it. And like there's just so much more of a community, and I've seen it grow throughout the years and just love it. Absolutely love it. Okay, switching topics a little bit and going kind of like back to more of like your work and everything, because I think that it's really, really cool that you have such a varied portfolio. And I want to talk a little bit about this, if you're comfortable with it, how people talk about how expensive being a photographer is and how hard it is to make money. So I kind of wanted to hear about like how you make it in the industry. I know we already talked about touring, that you don't tour right now. And a lot of people use that as like their main source of revenue. Like Prince is another one, or if it's just like working with locals or venues. So like how do you like make money in this industry, and like what are your tips of like forming a business and making this something that like can sustain your life pretty much?
Yeah, so like I said before, being, I don't want to say multi-talented, but like knowing a multitude of aspects of your work is so important. When I first started doing photography, I was a community manager at a fashion magazine, and I told no one about that job because I hated that job. I would sit in the car and cry before work, and after work I would go shoot shows at nightclubs and whatnot, and that was around the time that I was like, there's no way that I could do photography full-time. Like, you cannot tell me that that is how I'm going to make money. And I mean, back then, like, I was taking jobs that were like $100 here, $100 there. And that is, I mean, to this day, like, I still do that for certain clients, depending on, what they want from me, like the gravity in which I would be like traveling for them or stuff like that. Right now, like, I make my money mostly from marketing, and the merger between content creation and marketing. So I am on retainer with several clients right now where I run their social media. I don't really publicize it all too much because it's something that I would prefer kind of, like, I publicize it through my marketing firm, but like in terms of like a client list, like I don't go around being like, this band, like I run their social media, because I would rather see them succeed and be kind of the person in the background, like being the mom to like cheer them on in the background, rather than like me taking all the credit for it. Because obviously, like, it is their music. Like, I wouldn't have a job without their music. And especially if they're such amazing clients, like all these artists that I work for right now, I'm so thankful to work with them. A lot of them, I do a lot of video editing right now, especially for like TikTok and YouTube. I'll do a lot of vlog edits, and that, at least, like, I'm still in the background, but it is such like a quick turnaround time. Like, I'm so lucky that I can do that, because like I would never be able to fully move anywhere with a set schedule where I'm consistently, just like sitting in a couch or desk or whatnot, like just plugging away and having set hours. Like, that's something that if I get home at 10 p.m. or if I'm just like not feeling it that day, I can sleep during the day and work at night. And because a lot of times, like, all of my clients right now are either like Chicago time or LA time, I'm able to kind of like work at night so that it's 3 hours behind, so they're still, you know, okay with getting that turned in. But originally, like thinking about like the expenses when it comes to like cameras, for example, like it is not cheap. Oh my God. I remember in college, I had 3 jobs and yet no money because I was part of a sorority that ate up all my money. Worst decision of my life. If anyone's listening to this podcast, don't ever join Greek life because they'll suck your money up. It was like, I kid you not, like nearly $1,000 a semester that I was working to grab. So like I was waitressing and busting my ass the entire time just to pay off, you know, a sorority and buy t-shirts and go to formals and stuff like that. And I remember going as that broadcast girl, and that summer I ended up maxing out a PayPal credit card to get a Nikon camera. And it was my first camera with like a detachable lens, so I was like super psyched about it. But I was like, I'm not going to any shows, so like why did I just do this? But I then kind of got more experience and felt like, okay, like I'm gonna reroute the way that I make money and kind of figure out ways in which I can make money, you know, still do the stuff that I want in college, have that college experience, so to speak, but also pursue my career. I spent a lot of money going to festivals as media and pitching to artists and like hoping to God that they would hire me for like $50 to shoot their set during the concert. And like certain artists like that I'm at festivals, like I'll have like a wish list whenever I go to a festival of like, here is who I would die to shoot. Like I would absolutely love to shoot. And a lot of times like I'll do really cheap sets or like smaller artists for kind of like one-off things. Like I wouldn't do like a full day rate, but I'll be like, hey, I'll stop by and shoot your set. Or I'll do like a press shoot, or I'll, you know, a lot of times, like if I've been to that festival many a times, and if it's on the same campsite or the same, you know, area every time, I'll be like, hey, I've been to this festival 3 or 4 times now. I know the area very well, and I know the routing and backstage, so we could get an awesome press shoot done in 20 minutes, and then you go on stage, and, you know, like I can be like your tour guide. So it's almost like being the assistant to a TM with a camera, basically. So I got to make a lot of money off of that, and I'm very happy that kind of supplements my income, especially like during the summer. That's what I consistently do. Like me and a couple other girlfriends of mine, we are all concert photographers, and that's what we do, is we make things a lot cheaper by staying with one another, either tenting or through hotels, and we just put in Facebook groups like, hey, we need 2 people to come with us to this festival. If you got hired for stuff as well and you're not traveling with a team, let us know and you can split something with us. So it makes it cheaper and you can make more money that way. But I think the majority of my money has come from that marketing background and come from the ability to teach artists and management companies about marketing and social media marketing. So a lot of times I'll market myself as like, I'll create your content, having like, I'm just finishing up my master's right now in digital marketing, so I know what sells online, basically. So it's not just what to post on social media, it's like the metrics involved, like creating advertising, creating EPKs, creating marketing assets, like all those kinds of things for them, so that it's not just like, I'm gonna give you a 15-second, you know, clip of you performing. It's like, let's turn this into a narrative and let's work together to like make this an actual ad, basically. Sorry if you hear my cat in the background. He keeps meowing.
He's like, I want to be on the podcast too.
Yeah, so I think the vast majority has been income driven by that merger between either marketing or like marketing myself as like video, photo, and film. Like I think a lot of recent like pre-quarantine gigs that I got were like, do photo for us, but also like, for example, also do film for us, in the sense of like Boston, if like an artist like as an example, like Matoma, for example, had a show that was 2 nights with 2 friends and Win and Woo. out in Boston. And so night one, I did strictly film for them because that was the day that they were super hyped up. Tom Matoma's girlfriend came in from the Netherlands to go surprise him after not seeing him on tour for 6 weeks. So it was super cool to be in that space. And then the day after, I did photo for them. So it was something that I could market myself as like, hey, I have this skill, I'll do this for you. But also, if you want to bundle it, like, I give people that ability to do so as well.
That's awesome. That there's so much advice that you just like packed in there of like how to market yourself. It's been a long time
coming. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. One thing that I kind of want to touch on real quick is you mentioned the whole like festival thing and reaching out to like bands and artists that were, you know, at those festivals and marketing, presenting your skill set to them. Is that just you like reaching out to them before the festival, or like how did you go about, I guess, like shooting your shot for that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, you just really, like you said, have to shoot your shot. Like, just like if you, for example, saw a really cute guy or girl at a bar and you were like, this person's really, really cute, I would love to see if they would go on a date with me. You're not going to get anywhere if you just stand there and just like look at them, right? So like, you know, if you're at a show and you don't know anybody backstage, like part of the way that I absolutely love going to shows and like the reason why I feel like things have gone really well for me in the past couple of years is like I use the advantage that I'm a female to my, like I use it to my advantage. So if I don't know anyone backstage, I befriend the girlfriend, I talk to the TM, like I'm the person that's like, do you want a photo? No? Okay, like what's up? Like who are you? Like what's your name? Stuff like that. I think things for anybody's career goes so much further if you just step outside of your comfort zone and kind of take the risk. Like what can come wrong or what bad can happen if you go up to someone's girlfriend, like the DJ's girlfriend, and make friends with her. Like on top of that, like not, you know, I've grappled with that before because part of me is like, I don't want to come off as the person that's like, oh, I'm talking to you so I can have a connection for work. I have gotten so many amazing friendships from those conversations that, you know, that month or that year, it hasn't necessarily panned out to work per se. But like if I see someone at a festival and then they're like, oh my God, Cassidy, like, do you want to shoot our set? Like that is so much better and leads to so much like realistic conversations rather than like an email. Yeah. But in addition, like I do make it a point to email almost everyone on the roster or almost everybody that is on my like wish list, like I said before, of like who I would like to shoot. And I kind of just like cast the reel out and put the ball in their court. A lot of times, like I'm respectful of the fact that like some people travel with other people. That's fine. Like I skip artists that I know travel with people. And I think a lot of it is just doing your proper research, like being the person to look on their Instagram. If there's the same photographer over and over, like do not email that person because it's out of respect. But if you're seeing that, like, for example, their manager will pick, you know, different people in different areas and they don't necessarily want to hire someone on a day rate schedule, then like that's your time to shoot your shot. So I think that's what has worked out for me the most. But definitely like connections go a long way.
They really do.
I've met a lot of people who have been able to grow their career while being alongside amazing artists, and it's been all due to meeting someone at the right place in the right time. And I think like just advice on that is like just trust the process and know that like if you feel awkward, that person feels awkward, you know? Like if you're sitting down and you're just like not talking to anybody and kind of just like being the wallflower and just sitting there, like people are going to look at you differently than a photographer or anyone on that team, mind you, who's like actively, you know, like how's it going? Like how's touring been? Or, you know, like just making small talk that leads into like, so what do you do? Like, tell me more about yourself, stuff like that. Like, I think the more that you care about your career and the more that you like invest time in other people, like you'll feel that coming back to you.
Yeah, totally. it comes up every time in these podcast interviews that everyone talks about, like, connections, being nice, like, just talking to people, opening yourself out, like, up, and, like, emailing people, creating those conversations. It goes such a long way and helps you, further your career. But at the same time, you're also probably having more fun, because instead of just standing around, you're talking to all these people, you're doing all of the things, and it literally comes up every time. And it's just such an important thing for everyone to remember, to just, like, go out and do it. Go engage with people, go interact and form those relationships, and that's going to help you so much. Cool. So one of the questions I always ask in these interviews is, have you experienced any sort of, like, prejudice or, like, sexism or any, like, negativity from working in the industry? Like, if so, like, how did you handle it? How did you work around it? And I just kind of like to bring it up as a topic, because I think it's really important in all careers to just, like, be aware of things that go on in every industry.
For sure. I kind of like to preface it by saying that when I worked full time, I did have a couple instances in which I would consider it like kind of gender harassment in a way. Like, I used to work with, like, the fashion magazine that I worked with. The reason why I had left is because I worked amongst the staff that was all females, and the only male in the company was the CEO, and would consistently just, like, if you weren't doing a good job, it wasn't because you didn't know what you were doing, or it's not because you, like, did something wrong. It's because you were a woman. And that kind of set into me, like, how, like, it taught me, like, how sucky life can be sometimes, like, how you can't fix stupid, honestly. And for me, I grew up in an amazing household that was a military household, and I was definitely set in my ways about, like, if anybody says something to you that upsets you, you need to bring it to their attention and rectify it, because if you don't tell them what's up, they're going to do it to somebody else. So
exactly,
going into the music industry, it was kind of a checks and balances system, because obviously, you talk about, like, locker room talk, and as a photographer, being a wallflower, like, you hear stuff, and it's going back to checks and balances, like, it's hard sometimes to be the woman in the group and say, like, hey, that was fucked up, versus being a bro and being like, ha, like, that's so funny, like, being the person to hype up the artist amongst the whole team. So you really do have to use your fair judgment in, like, was that fucked up to the point where I need to say something, or is that fucked up so far that that's just, like, that's just how he acts, that's how he is, that, that's the guy's talking, blah, blah, blah. So, I mean, I've heard, obviously because I haven't toured before, I can't say that on my own accord, but I've definitely heard from very close friends of mine of them not getting hired because they're a woman. Yeah. I have been told before for tours that they can't afford me because I cannot sleep on the ground of a hotel room like some male photographers would traditionally, that they're not comfortable. I've also been told that girlfriends of certain musicians do not want them to tour with women, which, I kind of chalk it up to, like, that is something that the artist needs to work out themselves. And at the end of the day, no amount of money will be able to tell me that that is okay, and that I will sit and, like, take that and just kind of be like, yes, like, thank you so much for the job, because that's going to be a horrible job to work, right? Yeah. Like, every single day that you're there, and say that girlfriend that admitted that to you or to that artist is there, that's going to be some tension, right? So it's like a lot easier to just pick and choose your battles in that sense. But I do think that there's it's, like, not even just the music industry. I think it's, like, everything in entertainment, right? Like, We saw it with Me Too. We saw it with, recently there's been quite a few different like rape allegations being passed by, especially within the EDM scene, which is really horrible to see. Being that you put all of your time, effort, even money into these artists as a team member, and it's almost like a guilty by association thing. But I think, like, especially in this age, and especially when people are left to their devices right now, people are coming together and you're seeing people's true colors. So, I, during this time, have learned who I would like to work with and who I would not like to work with. And it's just like if you're working a 9-to-5 job and you saw that the CEO donated money to a politician you didn't like you as an individual get to make that choice to decide whether or not you want to support that person. Unfortunately, like as a photographer, like work is kind of sparse, so it's harder for us to kind of dictate like what job we want to, and I know that not many people have that luxury, but I think it's really important to set your standards of what you would like to tolerate as a woman in the music industry, and especially like you need to surround yourself with people that are like-minded. Like if that means surrounding yourself with male artists who have the same mentality as what you would idealize a male artist to have, then that's one thing. But for me, like, I love the fact that I have such a strong network of female creatives that I can turn to that are like no BS people. They've made their way into the music industry. They've earned their stripes basically. And if anything like that happened to me or to them, they would back me up or I would back them up in return. So it's so much better to have that and feel very empowered rather than just be like, oh my God, why is this happening to me? And feeling so alone, like you can't change the situation.
Yeah, you said so much that I agree with. And honestly, I could talk about like being a woman in the music industry for hours, but we won't dig into that right now.
I feel like all women are like cracking knuckles when they say that, like, oh my God.
But like, don't get me started. But I just love hearing from other people, like their experiences and their points of view and everything on the industry itself and how it is being a woman in the music industry, because it's definitely interesting. But I know we've been talking for a while and I just want to wrap this up. First of all, I'm so happy that you joined me today, so thank you so much. But before we end, can you shout out where people can find you online? And then my last question will be, let's end this with the best piece of advice that you've ever received that you'd love to pass on.
So you can find me on Facebook. You can find me at Cassidy Elizabeth Photography. You can go to Instagram and find me at Cassidy Cotilla. That is CassidyKotyla. Is actually my last name. And the same thing as my Instagram for Twitter. I'm obsessed with Twitter, so if you're looking for a good laugh, check me out. That's also, I feel like, where I'm like the most honest too. Like I never give like formal businesses my Twitter because I'm like, let's talk. And then I think in terms of the biggest piece of advice that I would give to somebody is, and I'm going to say this because I'm moving to a place where I need to remind myself this, be authentic. Because the only thing that separates you from another photographer is your authenticity. You know, everyone can buy the latest gear. You know, everyone can buy film that will make their photos look gorgeous or be connected to people that make them seem, you know, maybe something that they're not, or hype them up. But if you are not authentic and stay true to yourself, then you are never going to be who you really are. You know? I think that's really important, and it took me a very long time to realize that. So I'm glad that going into quarantine and practicing and kind of like getting down pat, like, who I am as a person, like, that will translate so far into my work and the new relationships and friendships that I'll make when I move. And yeah, so.
Nice. Love it. Well, thank you again so much for being on the podcast and sharing all of your advice and your tips. And I just love talking to people. I'm so happy that you were on here. So everyone listening, please go check out Cassidy's stuff, because her website is bomb and all of her stuff is really, really incredible. So please go check it out. And yeah, thank you, Cassidy, for joining me today.
Thank you so much. Bye.